Before I jump into showing you how to convert a percent to a fraction, I want to first just talk about the word percent. Percent is kind of broken up into two parts, and if we look at each part, that will help us figure out the meaning of the word. So per is going to refer to for each. And cent, you can think of money. There's 100 cents in a dollar, so cent is going to refer to 100. So percent basically means for each 100. And a lot of people just shorten it and put per 100. So if we have 22%, think of it as 22 per 100. Now we can write percents very easily into fractions. And the reason it's easy is because the denominator is always going to be 100. So 22% can be written as a fraction as 22 over 100, or 22 hundredths. Another one, 45%, that's going to give us 45 over 100. We might have some smaller percents, like 3%. Again, the denominator is going to be 100. So whatever the percent is, in this case 3, that's our numerator. And the percent is going to translate to the 100 in the denominator's place. Now we might have other types of percents. I just want to show you what they might look like. Say 0%. That's going to be a 0 in the numerator and 100 in the denominator. And that's okay. It's okay to have the 0 in the numerator place, but not in the denominator's position. In that case, it would be undefined. But when you have 0%, you can write it as 0 over 100. Sometimes you'll see 100%. And as a fraction, that's going to look like this, 100 over 100. And if you remember, that's a different type of an improper fraction. Remember, there's two types. Another type is when the numerator is larger than the denominator, say 150%. That's going to be 150 on top and 100 in the bottom. So these are called improper fractions, and an improper fraction is going to basically tell you that your answer is going to be either equal to 1 in this case, or in this case, greater than 1. Okay? So 100 100ths is equal to 1. 150 100ths is greater than 1. And we'll see that again when we convert percents to decimals. Okay, let's move on to, I want to do one more example. Let's say we have 4.5%. Okay, again, we're just going to write this part as the numerator, 4.5 over 100. Now, in this example, I'm going to give you, or in these problems, I'm going to give you, present to you the long way, and then, of course, the short way. And if you understand the long way, it's okay to use the short way. So let's start with a percent. Let's say we've got 34%. Well, we already know that 34% as a fraction is 34 over 100. Now, if I were to make this into a decimal, basically we would divide the numerator by the denominator to get the decimal amount. And I'll go ahead and do that. So 34 divided by 100. 100 doesn't go into 34, so I'm going to add a decimal and a 0. 100 goes into 300 3 times. Subtract, and then bring down another 0. 100 goes into 400 4 times. And so our decimal equivalent is going to be 0.34, or 34 hundredths. Let's try one more. Let's say we have 5%. I know that's going to be 5 over 100. And if I'm not sure what the decimal is, I could divide. 100 doesn't go into 5, so I'm going to add a decimal and a 0. 100 doesn't go into 50, so I need to put a 0 as a placeholder and add another 0. And then that will go in, 100 goes into 500 5 times. So you can see that 5 hundredths is written as a decimal as 0.05. Okay, now I'm going to show you a shortcut. And we'll look at both of these examples. The decimal point is right after the 4 in this number, 34%. We don't normally write the decimal point. But knowing that the decimal point is there, to convert to a decimal, we're just going to move the decimal point 2 spaces to the left. And you can see that's where it is. 34 becomes 34 hundredths. Same over here. Here's the decimal point. We're going to go 2 places to the left. Notice I've got an empty space there, so I need to put in that placeholder. And the other thing I want to mention is, notice in both of these cases, I've gotten rid of the decimal, or excuse me, the percent sign. There's no percent sign here. Again, no percent. Let's try one together. Say we have 63%, and you want to write that as a decimal. Well, if you wrote 0.63, you're correct. Let's try this one. 0% is going to be 0. Now, you might have written 0.00, but if we simplify that, we're just going to get 0. Now, what if we have a mixed number? For instance, I have a percent that's larger than 100. So 145%. Like the last ones, I'm going to find the decimal, which is going to be here. I'm going to go 2 places to the left, and I get 1.45, or 1 and 45 hundredths. If I have 100%, again, I'm going to go 2 places to the left, and that's just going to give me 1. Or if you wrote 1.00, that's fine, but basically it's 1. 100% is going to represent the whole of something, and it's always going to be equal to 1. Let's see if there's anything else. Oh, there is one other thing I want to show you, or actually 2 other problems. These are kind of tricky ones, just to keep you thinking. Say we have 4.5%. If we follow the trick, we're going to move 2 places to the left. So again, I want to put a 0 in here as a placeholder. So 0.045, or 45 thousandths. Sometimes you're going to get a number like this, 10 1/3%. Now, what we could do is convert this fraction to a decimal. And if you're not sure, you could divide, 1 divided by 3. That's going to give you 3, we're going to go 9, subtract, and we're going to just keep going, okay? This is going to keep going. It's a repeating decimal. So if we rewrite that as 10.3 and then move our decimal over, we're going to get 0.103 with a line over the 3 because that's the part that's going to keep going forever. Another example, say we don't have one that's repeating. Say we've got 4 1/4%. Okay, so again, if you know the decimal equivalent to a quarter, write that out. If not, you're going to have to do a little side math. I know it's going to be 4.25%. And then again, we want to move to the left 2 places. So we've got 0.0425 or 425 10,000ths percent. Or not percent, we're in decimal. Excuse me. All right, now we're going to move on to decimals to percents. So a decimal to a percent. Excuse me. Now, when we were going from a percent to a decimal, we were moving to the left, right? We were essentially dividing, okay? So percent to decimal, we're basically dividing by 100, okay? And that allowed us to move the decimal point 2 places to the left, okay? And we just did those problems. Now, when we're going the opposite, going from a decimal to a percent, we're going to do the opposite or the inverse operation, which is going to be multiplication. So we're going to multiply by 100. And as a shortcut, that's going to allow us to find the decimal place and then go to the right. Okay? And I'm going to give you some examples. All right, so say we have 24 hundredths written as a decimal. Okay, and I'm going to do the long way just so you understand why this is working. And then, of course, we'll revert to the shortcut. We're going to multiply by 100. So 100 times 0.24. That's going to be 0, 0, 4. And then we're going to go 0, 0, 2. And then we're going to add those up. We get 0, 0, 4, 2. Now notice we've got 2 decimal places here. So we need to go into, and so that's going to be equal to 24. And then we'll go ahead and add the percent symbol. Now that's kind of the long way to go about it. But basically, we could do a shortcut. Like the last time, we moved to the left, but this time we're going to move to the right because we're multiplying by 100. So we're going to go to the right 2 places and then add that decimal, or excuse me, add that percent symbol. So let's do a couple more, just so you get the hang of it. Let's say we have 0.36. We want to convert that to a percent. That means we're going to move it over 2 places to the right and then add a percent symbol. Okay. And let's do one more. How about 4 hundredths or 0.04? Again, 2 places to the right, 4%. Okay, and let's do one more just for good measure. Let's say we have a whole number, 3. We want to make that a percent. It's not going to become 3%. Okay, remember 100% equals 1. So we're going to get 300%. But again, if you're not sure why, the decimal point's here. So we're going to move it 2 places to the right. And then we got to fill in some zeros there. So we get 300%. Now on your homework, you're going to be given a worksheet in which you have a column of fractions, a column of decimals, and a column of percents. And you're going to have some filled in, so you'll have some fractions, and then for those fractions you're going to have to figure out the equivalent in decimal form as well as percent. And then the same with decimals as well as percents. So there's going to be a lot of empty spaces, but for each row you're going to be given one number, and then you'll have to find the equivalents. And I think this will be a good practice for you. You want to feel comfortable, generally speaking, with converting between fractions, decimals, and percents. Because a lot of percent problems, you're going to have to convert mainly to a decimal to do the calculation. And then also, for some problems, once you have a calculation, you then have to convert it back to a percent. And so you really want to try to feel comfortable with this type of activity going back and forth between fractions, decimals, and percents. Anyway, if you have further questions, please let me know in class. Have a great day.